Hello! In today's video I'm going to show you how I made Mizu's glasses. Here are some references from the show. We can see the proportions, the tint of the lenses and how the glasses behave in different lights color-wise. The first step was to make a 3D model. I made it in Fusion 360 and my husband enhanced the model so it's now parametric, which means that you can adjust the model to your proportions. The model is available on printables and you can download it from there for free, link is in the description. After some test prints and adjusting the proportions, I printed the final piece with PLA. Before priming, the surface of the print had to be smoothed out. I used some small metal files to get rid of the printing layers. As you can see, there were many tiny surfaces to take care of. When it was fairly smooth, I degreased it with white spirit. Again, many tiny surfaces. Finally, priming time. I used a car anti-corrosive primer. After several amount of layers, the primer filled the tiniest gaps, so the glasses were ready for sanding and a little filing. The primer evened the surface, but it still had some imperfections that needed to be sanded down. When it was all nice and smooth, it was time to pour the resin for the lenses. You can see here the test piece in the bottom right corner. I took a piece of plexiglass and I checked the surfaces for any remaining dust particles. Then I fixed the glasses frames to the plexiglass with hot glue, creating a tight bond to prevent resin leakage in the near future. I tried to be careful with the hot glue gun. It was important not to touch the primer surface with the tip of the gun because the surface could melt. I placed the silicone mat on a whiteboard, but any metallic surface would do. As you can see, plexiglass curved a little because the hot glue shrinked a bit, so I used some magnets to secure it in place. Then I checked if the surface was flat, so again, the resin wouldn't leak. For the resin, I used a clear epoxy resin primarily used for jewelry making. I mixed it very well until it was transparent again. Then I slowly added transparent resin tints. I added them bit by bit, not to overdo the final color. I used two resin tints, mainly amber with a bit of raspberry red. As you can see, adding a full drop of the tint wasn't too dangerous for the final color. Now I'm adding the raspberry shade. On the camera it doesn't change that much, but in real life it gave a nice twist for the amber color. I checked the color against the light by pouring it, and it turned out very nice. The resin had to be poured extremely slow because it had to fill the frames to the brim, not more and not less. I had to keep in mind resin's viscosity and stop pouring just a few drops before it filled the frames. Otherwise, it would leak, and I didn't want that. You can see that I let the resin flow on itself to fill the frame perfectly. And as you can tell, for the second lens it was the same process. Then I carefully covered the whole piece before any dust got in and let it cure for a few days. Actually, I waited the whole week to let the resin reach its maximum durability, just to be sure. The next step was to separate the glasses from the hot glue and the plexiglass. I thought it would be easier, but it wasn't easy and it wasn't fast. But with some patience and a few tools, I managed to set the glasses free. This process left some scratches, so I decided to sand the front of the glasses and polish it. It was actually a satisfying process of wet sanding and using resin polishing paste. I highly recommend that. This whole process unfortunately caused the middle detail partially disappear, so I had to take care of that. I removed primer's excess with sewing machine needle, the type used for leather. I highly recommend that type of needle to carve some fine lines, because it's like a very precise chisel, although it's sometimes hard to get a grip on. I almost forgot that the frame's sides also had to be taken care of, so here you can see some finishing touches. Since I have a huge collection of stickers, I found just the perfect shape and size to mask the lenses for another priming. Then I could prime the front side again with the same primer. And for the painting, I used the colors that you see, and an airbrush, because the paint layer had to be as thin as possible and without any brush strokes. I used basic acrylic paints for airbrush, but they adhered perfectly to the primer and I didn't even put any varnish for a finishing layer. Although some varnish wouldn't hurt, because after 2 days of wearing the glasses at a convention, some of the paint and primer layers have worn off in the places where they touch my nose. Okay, so the frame's surface was uniform again. I changed the stickers in the meantime because I peeled off the previous ones for just checking reasons. I added some thin acrylic paint here and there to add some detail to the painting layer since it's not perfectly uniform on the references. This is what the process looked like. I partially covered all the frame surfaces, just making sure that the edges stayed clean. Time for the reveal. This is what it turned out like. The glasses are even foldable. Thank you very much for watching. Next up, making of the sword of Mizu.